And when you deploy this pipeline a second time, it will still use GitHub, and it will be like, hey, this deployment already exists.
Cool.
It will deploy new stuff, but you lose your logging. So it will say, hey, I'm overriding the existing deployment. 99 out of 10 times that's not a big deal, but that last time you're very happy that you took the effort to check deployment name there. So what I use here is one of the variables that you get with a pipeline. I say the GitHub run ID. So this makes it a little bit bigger chance that it's actually a unique value. And after that, I've defined the parameter directly, and you can also do this with parameter files for any way you want to use this. So if we look over here now, I've got the deploy the Bicep file. And it connects to Azure. And then it deploys the Bicep template. You can see everything that happened, what parameters were used, and that it was actually successful. So we got the deployment there. Basically, we're done. But this is kind of boring. We probably were like, okay, this is very basic. We can find it somewhere online. We wanted to take this to the next level. So first things, let's think about how we could connect tasks with each other. In our infra as code, this is something can be useful. I've seen a lot that people use multiple templates in one pipeline. In Bicep, you have the option to connect them with each other through Bicep itself, but maybe you want some PowerShell to run in between, maybe you have some other use case. But let's see what happens if we want to make sure that these tasks can interact with each other. So in this case, I've made an example. The first template is going to deploy a log analytics workspace. The second template is going to deploy an application with application insights. And the application insights need the ID of the just deployed log analytics workspace. So what I have for that, first thing I did is change something in my code. I needed to set something on the Bicep level. This is the template for the log analytics workspace. And here at the bottom, I've created an output. So if this template is run, an output is created. With this word could have been shorter. The log analytics workspace resource ID. I define that as an output, which is a string, which is the ID of the log analytics workspace that was just created. And now I want to use it in my actions. So I'll just zoom out a little bit. I'll go to the workflow right here. And I have basically the same actions I did before, except I now have two deployment tasks. And if I look at the action here, this is the first one, deploying the log analytics workspace. And there's one thing that I added here, just one thing, and that's the ID, which you see here. So I gave this an ID, with something I made up. So for log analytics workspace, you can add anything here. What you're creating is something you can refer to. So you want it to be one word which you can refer to from other resources, other actions. And now if I go to the web app, where I'm actually doing the deployment, here are the parameters again. There's some names out here. But this is the interesting one, the workspace ID. And here I have some syntax which I can freely output. So I first need to define, I'm looking for the steps. So something that happened within the steps. Then I can use log, because that's the ID I just gave to my previous step. Then outputs, and then I can use whatever I defined as an output there. So this is now pretty much an interactive pipeline which is able to run on its own and use this information that it just deployed. And we can see that over here. If we go to this specific one, and I go to deploy over here, and this is the interesting part where we have the output. And here it tells you what parameter it used. And it says for the workspace resource ID, so this is also handy. You can actually check if it did the right thing, if it did what you expected to do. So it's very handy with troubleshooting. Notice something else here, that it says the resource ID subscriptions and then 3 stars. The reason for that is that that's where the subscription ID would be, and I added the subscription ID to the secrets. And GitHub does a check on the values in the secrets and the values in the logs, and if it sees something that's in the secrets, then it will not show it. So even if I want to do some tricks to show the secrets in a repository, it can be pretty hard. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I did see there are some blogs out there that refer to, hey, this is how you can show the secrets. A lot of them don't work. I think they worked back then. I think this is some improvement that has been done. GitHub does warn you that you need to be careful if you use any kind of syntax in your secrets. So if you use JSON or XML or something like that, there's a bigger chance that your secrets can be exposed. If you use strings, it's not even available in the log, while this is on a completely different subject. Personally, I really like that one. So we now have 2 tasks interacting with each other. Now the next step, let's say we don't want this all to run in order, because that's what it's doing now. It's doing 1 task at a time, all next to each other. But we have another line there. Maybe we want to add a second stage. Could be a few reasons to do that. Maybe we want stuff to run in parallel, save some time here. If we have deployments that don't have to interact with each other, we can run them at the same time. Save some time, especially if one fails and the other one can just keep running. But what you see a lot is that you have some sort of testing or some sort of build in the first part and then deploy in the second part. So we can also do that with GitHub. And we'll move to that pipeline. Whoa, zoomed in a lot. Yeah. So here I have the stages again. And we see the jobs I've defined at line 14, and then on line 15 I define the build stage, which is the first stage. And if we move down a little bit, here is the deploy stage. So this makes the fact that I have 2 stages here. Now in the first stage, basically all I do is AZ Bicep build. And this is a little tip for people who are working with Bicep. This is one of the lowest thresholds way to test your templates. Because if there's anything wrong with the syntax of your template, this task will fail. So something you can use as a very basic way to test. But it doesn't matter what we're doing here, we're the testing stuff, we're building stuff, and then on line 36 we're ready for the deployment. I need to define again that this will be on the Ubuntu agent. I can also use another agent here. This can be very handy if you're checking some sort of client application and you want to test if it works on all OSs. And you can have 3 different jobs running on 3 different agents. Don't have the use case here, so I'm going to leave it at Ubuntu latest. And I've added some stuff here. On line 38, I say it needs build. And build is the previous task. If I don't define that, they will run in parallel. Or even better, this one might run first. And that's not that handy if you're doing tests. So by defining it here, it will wait until build has successfully completed, and only then it will start running this one. And on line 9, I added something extra, a condition. So I say I don't want this to run all the time. I only want this to run when the main branch is used. So this is the GitHub reference, and the reference is the main branch. So especially for deployment, I don't want the deployment to run from the development branch. So if you're using like some sort of Git interface there where you say we are developing stuff and then we create a pull request, if we use this one, we can even have this run on the other branches. It will be fine because it will not deploy unless everything is on the main branch. And if we look over here, and we see the pipeline that comes with it, we actually get a nice little interface there where we can see the structure of the workflow. So we see build, we see deploy, and we see they are connected with each other. And this part is pretty simple because it's two stages, but you can make this as complicated as you want. But you see a lot also is that you have some sort of setup where you have development and production, where you have separate stages for all your environments. So this is something you could use. All right, so pipeline is getting prettier and prettier here. Another thing I want to mention is manual approval. Manual approval, some people are like, this is manual stuff, we want to automate everything, right? The thing is, when you deploy stuff automatically, especially with infrastructure as code, you can also destroy stuff very, very quickly. And I think there's a lot of stories out there, and it's good, especially if you're going to production or if it's a pretty complicated one, to have some sort of manual approval in there. What this also brings you is the 4I principle, which you already have with the pull request, but here you have an extra check where someone can say, I saw this pipeline, I approve of it, and this is fine, and this can deploy to production. Important to notice here is that you cannot use this on private repositories, which makes sense because often in a private repository you're the only one working on it, so who would need to approve it? You can use it on public repositories and in any sort of team or enterprise environment. And I'm going to show this here. So how do we set this up in manual approval? I used a different repository because one was development, the other one was private. And what you need is an environment. So I have an environment here in the settings, and I created an environment production. You can create as much of them as you want. And in production here, I can define that I want to require certain reviewers, and I can name them. I can tell who needs to review this. So here I said, yeah, I'm going to review it myself. I can add a wait timer here, and I can say that I don't want admins to bypass the protection rules. So often admins have that option. I have no clue what's going to happen here as I am the admin and the only required reviewer, but not important for this case because this is not how you would do things in real life. So I have an environment here, and now I need to add this to that workflow. And to do that, I only need to add one setting. And that is right here, line 40, environment production. All I need to do. So at this point, when we go to the deployment, it will define for me, say, hey, this needs to add all the rules that are in the production environment. So it needs a reviewer. And if I look over here, I have started this pipeline, and I got an email saying, hey, a request for a review is asked. So the build step we see over here just ran fine. I can view it, I can see what's going on, and here it says it's not going to deploy until I approve. And I can say I can approve it, I can leave a comment, I can approve it, or I can reject it, saying, yeah, that's not going to happen. So especially when you're getting in a big environment, if you have a lot of co-workers working with a team, very handy to have some manual approval in there. I want to mention real quickly, again, some things we already talked about. For the security, we saw already how we can work with secrets. Don't put anything plain text in there. I don't need to tell you people this. For the actions, it's good to think about the versions. As I said, the actions are created by community. So often they follow the semantic versioning of major, minor bug fix. And you would think, well, I define the major and let them do everything because there's not going to be any breaking changes. But maybe one person somewhere made that repository with that action, you are using it, and they have some malicious intention. And they change something in the minor version, and you haven't defined that you want to use that specific minor version. At that point, they can run malicious code in your repository, and you wouldn't know it. So the actions you saw, I defined just the major version. And the reason for that is because they were made by Azure and by Microsoft and by GitHub. So I know the chances of that happening are pretty small. But if you use something community-based, you might want to specify the specific version. Of course, it comes with the downsides that you have to manage it. So you have to update it manually. But It's community driven. A lot of good things come from the community, but it also can be a risk. So it's good to check that. Now let's mention the cost real quickly, because we're almost out of time. You get 3 minutes you can use. With a free account, you get 2,000 minutes of workflow that you can use. I did the math, it's a little over an hour a day. So specifically for your own use, that should be fine, unless you are deploying VPN gateways every day, because they take like 45 minutes. If you don't do that, should be fine with free plan. If you don't have any payments in your GitHub account, when you're through the minutes, it will just say, minutes are up, you're not going to deploy anything anymore. If you do have payment set up, you pay per minute. One thing that's important to know is that this goes one-on-one for the Ubuntu agent. So for the Ubuntu agent, 1 minute of run is 1 minute out of your little savings account here. If you use Windows Server, it's 2 minutes. So every minute you run a pipeline, it will get 2 minutes out of this saving. If you use Mac OS, it's 10 minutes. I don't know if this is some kind of judgment on Mac OS, at least it's up to you. Lets you save, probably a lot more expensive for GitHub to run. So they just calculate that with you. So if you were in doubt, do I really need Ubuntu? Yes, you need Ubuntu, it's cheaper. And that's pretty much all I have on these tips and tricks for you. I've set this repository up, the QR code goes to the repository as well. So this repository, every code we just used is publicly available, so you can go to this repository, and in the README I have added a bunch of files which you can visit, and a lot of documentation on pretty much everything we did. So you can check that out if you want more information. And if you want to keep following me or have any questions later, you can still find me on Twitter, BA4BES. And that's all the tips and tricks I have today, and we're pretty much out of time, so that's good. So have fun everyone for the rest of the day, and thank you for coming.